365.
X.
SharePoint sucks.
SharePoint sucks. So I'm here with Mark Kashman at SharePoint Conference, and we're going to have an entertaining discussion about some new features.
Yes.
And the SharePoint sucks, yeah, it's I don't know what happened. This morning I woke up, and I felt something between my bed, and then I pulled, and this came out.
Let's get those nice and close. Those are those beauties, huh? Mm.
They're everywhere, but people love these socks.
They do, and those are the old ones. I know people are thinking about upgrading and migrating to the cloud. We've got the new SharePoint teal socks with the new logo, which I see you're blinging out all over the place.
That's so, and I understood these are already like collector items.
Those are classics.
Yeah.
Those are absolute classic. So yeah, we've got new SharePoint socks. You can still get the classics ones, maybe, but we've also got Yammer, Stream, and OneDrive. So lots of colorful new icons everywhere.
Perfect. So I want to talk to you about valuable business use cases.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood you want to share something about something that was released this week.
Yeah, we've got two things, if you don't mind. First one is really one of the top level items was SharePoint Home Sites. Mm-hmm. And certainly the use case there for the entire company, there's a lot of value. But the thing that I really want to highlight is what's happening on the right rail. A lot of times people talk about their company portal as being something that feels stale. They come back to it and it's really the same news or the same items in the navigation, and it doesn't feel personalized. So on the right-hand side, you'll see where you can see all of your recent activity, whether it's your recent documents, news that's targeted to you and tailored for you based on who you work with, or using some of the new audience targeting features. People are actually trying to communicate to you based on where you work, who you report to, what organization kind of structures. Mm-hmm. So you have a really full me experience. It's all my personalized experience. What sites that I see, what are my news items, what are my documents, and you'll see more investments in that area because we are tracking what people are doing from a service perspective, not Big Brother, but through the Microsoft Graph, we know a lot about who you work with, what you work on, where your interests are.
What kind of content I engage with.
That's right.
Yeah.
So why not put that front and center, not to take up the whole space. That was really the role up until this point of SharePoint Home. Mm-hmm. But now with the My SharePoint being a part of the SharePoint Home site, it really is on the most parent level of your company portal, giving space for it to be highly personalized and relevant to what you're doing because that will change all the time. And remember, that's the right rail. The left side is really for people that are curating news, highlighting big events and campaigns that they're running inside the organization.
The important corporate communication stuff.
All the corporate communication stuff,
yeah.
Which can also be highly personalized. They can target that content as well.
Based on where, what country, or what division, or you work in.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's a great experience. It all relates back to mobile. So if you're on a mobile device, whether you want to look at the right rail information or the curated content, of course it's all going to be available and it looks beautiful on mobile. So whether you're on the go or whether you're at your desktop, PC, Mac, across everything, these home sites are super powerful, super personal, and easy to access through whatever device.
Cool. SharePoint Home Sites, guys. Woo! Very cool stuff. It's I like personalization because there's a core reason why people sometimes don't come back to or oftenly visit the intranet is because it's only full of corporate communication data. And of course, that's good, but you have a balance. And now with this technology, you're going to bring a balance, and it's going to be more valuable to me as a person based on what I do and where my interests are.
That's right. So from a scenario perspective, it's very user-friendly and user-oriented. That is what we're building for, the end-user experience. But for value to the company all up, if you're thinking about moving your intranet to the cloud or wanting to move from your classic portal to something like a SharePoint home site as the default experience for everybody, you should know that this is creation in minutes, obviously loading in content and moving things that, again, I don't want to overplay that it would be just days, but think in terms of weeks and months to get an absolutely new, beautiful, dynamic portal in the cloud, and thinking about retiring some of the things that might have been in the classic mode for the notion of just wanting to go and have something that's more out of box or something that you have to manage less over time, still with the ability to customize. You can do custom components like web parts, custom extensions for the header and the footer. And there's a lot of places where people can extend or configure. But the out-of-box experience that costs a little less and requires a lot less uplifting just to get there is one of the big things that's valuable for the company.
Cool stuff. So your second use case.
Yeah,
I'm curious. I saw many cool things. What did you pick?
There were a lot of cool things. I don't know if anybody's talked about this yet, but the concept around I have something that is in a PowerPoint document and I want to send it to you in a very targeted way. And so instead of the scenario where I send you my deck and I say to you, oh, go to slide number 23, that's the information you're looking for. Now I can actually go in and create a link that will go directly to that slide. And in the act of sharing, similar to our sharing dialogue, I can mention you with that link that will then directly not only get you to that specific slide, but already give you the permissions that I'm wanting to grant you to look at the deck. So
Perfect.
The scenario is I've got a really long 60-slide keynote, and I get back to corporate and somebody says, hey, I heard we announced blah, blah, blah. And I can say to them, yeah, look at the keynote deck, slide number 23. Or I can grab a link from slide 23, send it to them with the @mention permissions, and when they click on the link, it takes them right to the deck, slide 23, and the context is from the click of what I said or what they were asking about, and it keeps that context without somebody going, brr. And if you can also imagine, that slide might be active content. So if I send you a link to the slide, whether it was 23 or whatever, and somebody is also co-authoring in that environment or real time we're building out our presentation, it'll still take them right to where I want to direct their eyeballs, even if things change. It's just a link to that particular slide.
I really love this feature because this is a thing I do on a daily basis. And I misuse PowerPoint for building sales documents or architectural documents or starting up like a functional requirement document. And of course, presentations. So PowerPoint keeps on being like a very dense way of having a bite-sized way of communicating data to another person. But it always used to be like a three-step process. I have the slide deck, then I have to create the link, then I go to email, and normally I could, of course, send them just the link, but it always needs a little bit of context. So then I had to go to Outlook, create a new email message, say, well, this is the slide deck I'm working on. Do you want to check slide 23? And I had to make sure that they have access to it.
Yep.
And now I can do that. That just is in one simple thing by mentioning the one or multiple people who I want to have feedback on that particular slide.
Exactly, and that's really the whole concept of being able to save everything you just described, which sounds a bit of work to the end user. But really in the flow of what you're trying to accomplish, I want to show you this particular slide and get your feedback. In one motion, you can grant permissions, link directly to that, and the experience on the recipient end is, okay, and then they just provide feedback. And that feedback could be within the PowerPoint comments. So they could mention back to you, hey, Mark, looks great, thanks. Yeah.
These are the perfect examples that I like what Microsoft is doing now. And you're using the correct words like in the flow, in the motion of doing work. And I always talked about like working in a flow. And you can be, it's a mindset. So normally it takes like 30 minutes to an hour to reach a certain matter of concentration. And as soon as you're in it, you can be extremely productive. And you could really like jump from one task to the other. But as soon as you would hit a barrier or have to do something formal or have to think about things like security or that's blocking the creativity and then limits your productivity basically at that point to a big extent.
Yeah, and some people even add in the notion of an @mention, which is pretty common these days, to not even have to think that that is going to give you the access that you need. They might just be thinking, I'm sending a mail with a link. But to ensure that it actually gives them access to what you're linking them to, even if they thought about it or not, is a relief. Because imagine if you were to @mention somebody and they get the slide and then it says you don't have any permissions. Request permission is like, that's weird, you know, and then you might abandon at that point.
Yeah, and you can lose a lot of time or important deadlines you could miss or whatever. So it's crucial that this works fluently.
Absolutely, and I would say, just looking at your bling, anything that we can do to keep you in the flow, looking slick, and this is like toned down. This is toned down. I saw him the other night with bling, 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 bling. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm doing my best. And so actually, I did an interview with Joe Olsen, and we were talking about SharePoint is looking good, and we combined it with fashion. There's the lookbook, there's people looking good, and the socks. It's all about fashion.
It is all about fashion. I never thought that one day somebody would say, I want my thing to look like SharePoint. And we are hearing that more and more, and the lookbook is a great example. I was a little impressed because that was actually built by our engineering team. They build the product, no surprise there. But when they came out with the lookbook and asked us, to get the word out, I was like, we should have done this. We're the marketing team.
Yeah.
But the lookbook is great. And not only does it look great, it actually, from the feedback I've been hearing, is that people actually look at it and go, that is something that I would like to accomplish, or I didn't know it could do that. So visually, it's very specific in terms of what's the role of a hub site, a communication site, a team site, as much as maybe you and I, because we talk about them all the time, but for an end user who maybe is just given the keys to a new team site, what can I do? You know, how do you work with web parts? How do I work with document libraries, lists, Power Apps and Flow, maybe a little bit further down, but once you get there, and to see it visually and to kind of the art of the possible, I could tell you, you could tell them, they could read about it, but to see it, and for, of course, for it to look as good as it is, lookbook all the way.
Good stuff. So I will put in the link to the lookbook. It's very important. And I really think that if people see how beautiful things they can very easily create, it will help them making positive energy. I want to do this thing. I give me that project. I want to build a new HR site or whatever using this stuff. So
absolutely. I mean, if somebody says, I want to build a new HR site, and that's being, something that they've gotten excited about over from the lookbook, or I think just hearing you describe it, that's a huge win.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Mark. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great having you here.
Thanks.
And, great stuff. Thanks for watching.